All right, welcome to today's video. Thank you so much for joining me because I have a big message that could be really controversial regarding credit cards. And originally, I did want to have this video channel to be partly financial tips and tricks and things that I've done along the way to kind of get things prepared for our journey. Now I'm doing a full-time YouTube thing to take off to see if I can actually make this work or not. But first and foremost, I want to talk about the controversy about credit cards and the problem that they can cause if you don't manage them right. So what I'm going to say here is what I did, things I've gotten through and why I do what I do. It is not necessarily advice for everybody. In fact, this will be, like I said, controversial for some of you who actually just don't believe what I believe, because my beliefs have changed over time. I am a huge Dave Ramsey fan. Okay, I love what he teaches about certain things, but I obviously still have credit cards, so I don't believe everything works for me, what he had in place because of my situation. So depending what your situation is, I'm going to tell you right now, I have been up to about $30,000 in credit card debt at one point in time, and I was making only about $6.50 to $7 an hour. In fact, I think it was less. I think it was $6 an hour, and I got a raise to $6.50, which we were just ecstatic about. And with $30,000 in credit card debts, even the minimum payments weren't being made. I did the whole shuffle of getting a new credit card to pay off the other credit card because it had this 6 months, no need to pay type of thing. And believe me, that was an absolute nightmare to do that. I finally had to give up. I ended up getting a strategy from a book called Debt Cures, and it helped me a lot to figure out how I'm going to do it. And this was 20 years ago, so I don't know necessarily if it works the same, and I'm not advocating it. Okay, I'm just saying this is what I did, and I know that I have had one friend who I shared my strategy with of what I did to get out, and she was able to use it to actually clear some of her credit cards as well. I'll talk a little bit about that later in this video, but for now I want to talk about strategies of why I still have credit cards and why they're still been very useful for me. First and foremost, these credit cards are also credit cards that are very specific for reasons that we have them. We don't just get credit cards because it's credit available to us. I have to say, in my opinion, one of the dumbest things I've ever heard is I want to get good credit so I can get this one specific credit card because it has a cute logo on it. Let's just say it has a mouse on it, that someone really wanted to get a mouse credit card. And for some reason, it just doesn't dawn on me that it doesn't make sense. You know, the interest rate was outrageous and it just didn't help out financially. We use our credit cards to help us out financially. We never carry debt. I am totally 100% anti-debt. Okay, so here's one thing that a lot of people will find very controversial about what I'm saying. Pay off your credit cards first before building your emergency account. Okay, and this is something that, again, is going to be controversial because Dave Ramsey doesn't teach this, and a lot of people will say you got to go ahead and build your emergency account. And I 100% agree, you need to get an emergency account. But I am a more analytical type of personality, so I analyze the data about credit cards. We've carried credit card debt 3 times throughout my life, 3 big downfalls throughout my lifetime, and the debt was really enormous. The first 30,000 was when I was around my mid-20s, and I finally got out of that through some negotiations and working that out. The second time around, I actually had to go ahead and work through investments and then paid it off. And then the third time around, it was because of a business failure that I was using my credit cards as our emergency account because we just ran out of funds, and I also had to work my way out of it. Here's my take on emergency funds versus credit cards first. These credit cards, if you are in the situation that I was in the past where you had tens of thousands, maybe even just a few $1,000s in credit card debt and you're struggling with it, thing is the interest you are paying on that is so much higher than you can imagine as far as an expense. I guarantee you, if you look at the interest you are paying on that and you add it up, it would absolutely just dishearten you. You probably already know it, honestly, because I watched that, how much was actually being paid in interest every time I got that bill. And that interest payment could be going to something else once it's cleared. So here's the problem with actually building an emergency fund and only paying the minimums first. You build an emergency fund. Dave Ramsey says $1,000. Everybody knows that's not enough. Even he says it's not enough, but it is a good starting point because he is about mindset. And I agree with that. There is a mindset you have to go through. But if you can get that mindset without doing that strategy and actually tackling the highest things that are actually causing you expense first and headache, that would be another strategy you might want to consider if it's your personality type. If you can't control yourself, don't do it. So here's what I would say first. If you have credit cards and you can't control yourself, you should pay off the credit card debt first, but you should also call the credit card companies and say, I would like to stop any charges on my credit cards and shut it off. I will continue to make payments. And then what you do is you start making every payment possible to get these credit cards paid off. Okay, now the only thing is, if you're going to use it as an emergency fund as a different strategy, if you already have some savings on the side, or if that's okay with you, then the other strategy would be is you would just not call them, but you would continue to pay everything into the credit cards to clear them off completely first. Here's why. The interest payments are now going to start coming down as far as how much you're paying in interest. And once the credit card is gone, you can start building your savings account a lot faster because you're not paying the bank interest. Does that make sense? I hope so. So this is kind of like, again, let me go ahead and reiterate that. You pay the credit card down first. Once the credit card is completely paid off, all of your credit cards are paid off, then you go ahead and you start to make your savings account. Now, if you run into an emergency, because you've paid down your credit card and you've opened up your line of credit, that would be your emergency fund only for emergencies. Now, this is for the personality type that can control themselves. You got to know what an emergency is. Something that will absolutely cannot be avoided because it will stop income like say if your car breaks down. That is an emergency. You need to go ahead and have something fixed. Of course, medical. You need to go to the hospital, and because you have a fever and you need to take care of, if it's an infection, that'll kill you if you don't go and take care of it, right? That's an emergency. Those are the type of things that you need to go ahead and have room for. And then I believe you keep the credit card lines open, pay them down, but keep opening the line of credit. Okay, now once that's paid off, in my opinion, the personality type I was is once I didn't want to put anything else back on the credit card. So then what I started doing is building up my savings account and then only paying for things that I could afford. So of course you need to make sure you're in a situation, this is common sense here. You need to make sure you're in a situation where you actually have an income that is actually sustaining. And if you don't, you need to do what Dave Ramsey says, honestly, is get another job or start looking for a higher paying job. You know, if you're being comfortable at your job, but it's not paying you enough, then you're not comfortable in life. It doesn't make sense to stay there. Or I'm not saying quit, okay, until you find something else that actually pays more. Or get a second job or learn a skill to go ahead and do something to make more money. It's just, that's the bottom line. Yes, we live in a society that right now is more expensive than what most of us make. If you're not making enough, you're going to have to find ways to hustle a little harder to make some money. That's just kind of the way it is. You have to cut your expenses, look at everything else, do your budgeting. That's all the basic fundamentals. This is not about that. I can talk about budgeting later and how that's going to work. This is about the credit card strategy and why I think pay down your credit cards first, get that interest payment off. That's a waste of money. Once your credit cards are paid off, then go ahead and start building your savings account. If you can afford to cut out the cards completely, like turn them off, then turn them off. That's not going to stop your interest payments. It's not going to stop your payments, but that'll stop you from spending if you don't have the funds to do it. If you already, in fact, my strategy was even I had a savings account, I dumped my savings into my credit cards, left the lines of credit open on some of them, just enough to have an emergency spent in case something were to happen. And that worked out very well for me. Will it work out for you? I don't know. That's something you have to do. You have to make sure now you analyze properly what's going to work for you and what's not. Okay, that's really important. This is your responsibility to step up and take a look and not just say, oh, Chris said to do this. No, I'm saying look at your situation. Does it make sense? Can you control yourself? And if you can, then step forward and do it because it's worked out for me. That was our strategy. That's how I got to the position where we have no debt and I was able to leave and we have a savings account that can actually sustain us for probably 6 months to a year. All right, so that's all this part of the process. It took, like I said, 7 years of recovery to get out of it, but also to build up the savings on top of that. It's not an easy process, but you can do it. At 51, I was able to do it. I guess I started when I was 40 again. That was a restart. There was other restart and then was in my mid-30s and the restart again before that was in my mid-20s. At my age, I'm just getting better and faster and wiser at it. And I think you can do it too. Hopefully this has been helpful for you. If it has, Please be sure to subscribe for more content like this and comment. What are your thoughts? I want to know. If you disagree with me, I want to know that. What can you do? What else is available? What am I missing? I want to learn from you as much as I hopefully can give you some lessons of what has happened and been able to be helpful from me. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video.